Hello, hello. I want to give a shout out to my team here at Select Harvest. Woohoo! Are we ready to go? Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is the last session of the day, so we are almost there. Hang in. I am here with a lot smarter panel than me. I've got Julie, Laura, Rob, and Harbinder. Unfortunately, Muriel and Connie were not able to travel, but we are going to hear from them during this course. Well, I'm going to talk about, we heard about India, and India is one of the largest export markets. But second, or the players which are coming in to support the California almond market also is China, Japan, Korea. Korea and Japan have been consistent markets with, I'm going to share this one slide. Korea and Japan have been very consistent almond consumers with very consistent growth pattern. But the low-hanging fruit and still a very, with a lot of unknown is China. Combined, these three markets comprise of between 10 to 13% of the total California almond export. So these are very critical. We can't even only look at Western Europe, US, and India. This is the Oriental Triangle, which is a big support to the California almond industry. How I define China, Japan, and Korea is there are three siblings who came from the same place long time ago. They have their differences. To the Western world, they seem very similar. Internally, they have their different nuances. But one common thread in them is the middle class, the growing middle class, and the health. And where Almond Board is positioning the health halo effect, beauty within and beauty outside, is a common driver for all three markets. We don't have the advantage we have in India with the cultural use of almonds. So having the health halo is the driver here. I'm going to play, I got one more thing to add. If you look at the China per capita number, it's column number 4. That number is what excites me. If we can move the needle from 0.11 to a 0.22, where the US per capita is 2.46, we can double, we can be at 200 million additional pounds in China. That's a low-hanging fruit, and it is a low base. I wanted to bring everybody's attention to that. So here we go. Our journey to China, Korea, and Japan.
Hit Korean series Squid Game has now become
Koreans are the best at beauty.
Thank you, Dinesh, and hello everyone! I'm so sorry for not being able to come to Sacramento, as we currently have a 21-day quarantine policy here in Hong Kong. But I do hope that I can meet with you in person next time. As some of you may know, in China, we position almond as a beauty nut that offer healthy, beautiful skin benefits, targeting to women who are health and beauty cautious. When we look into the beauty market in China, the country has been taking a lot of inspirations and heavily influenced by Japan and Korea. With the learning from these two pioneering Asian countries in beauty, China has started to embrace its own traditions and culture, merged with innovative ideas to carve out its own C-beauty standards and priorities. Today, my colleague and agency team member will share a lot of interesting beauty trends and insights, and how our China program is communicating with our target audience, how we are expanding into new geographic territories, and including younger women into our target segment. With that, I'll pass it over to our very beautiful Japan and Korea consultant, Muriel.
Hello everyone, this is Muriel Kim. I'm the market consultant for South Korea and Japan. Just like what Connie said, I'm so sorry that I will not be able to attend the Almond Conference this year. South Korea just announced a very strict traveling restrictions, so I will have to serve 10 days of quarantine upon arrival. But I'm keeping my hopes high, so I get to see you sometime next year. In both South Korea and Japan, we position almonds as beauty nut that offers multiple beauty benefits. So the primary focus that we have is the vitamin E's beauty benefit for skin and hair health. And the secondary benefit that we focus on is weight management that comes from the plant-based protein and fiber from almonds. In South Korea, we are in our 5th year of our beauty campaign entitled Almonds Beauty Secret. Japan, we are in our 3rd year of our beauty campaign entitled Live Life with Almonds. In both markets, almonds came to be recognized as the best nut for promoting beauty and an excellent source of vitamin E. My colleagues can tell you everything about it today. Please have a very happy Almond Conference. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to pass the baton to Julie. Take it away.
Thanks, Dinesh. All right. Hello, everyone. And what I'd like to do is I get to start because while Muriel and Connie are talking about almonds creating this beauty image, I deal with the stuff that causes wrinkles. And that's the regulations. There's just no two ways about it. Try and deal with those, get those out of the way so you can focus on the good news. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about what we're dealing with in each of the 3 markets. So I'm going to start with South Korea. And basically, pesticide MRLs are really some of the main issues we're dealing with in Asia. So there is a view that a lot of these food products, there's a lot of attention on pesticides and the way products are grown. Korea instituted a positive list a number of years ago, in 2017 actually. And when they instituted that positive list and started talking about getting these compounds registered, a lot of commodity groups got involved, but I'd say that the Almond Board, working closely with US government and registrants, we wanted to make sure that we had any of the tools that we use in the States covered by the requirements in South Korea. And so what we did was we really started working very closely, making sure we had everything on the list. And I'm happy to say that as we follow what's going on in Korea, really we're seeing very few outstanding issues. Most of the important compounds have been addressed. there are a few areas that we're continuing to focus on, and we would be happy from the board staff to give you any background you may need or looking at some of the residues that we're tracking. If we move to Japan, again, here too, pesticide MRLs, residues are again a big concern. And Japan also has a positive list that they had put in place. And this is something where we're continuing to monitor what's being established, what compounds are being revisited. Now, again, I think we're in actually very good shape when it comes to these tools in these two markets. But what we are watching, and I think is very important, is Japan is very concerned again about the overall quality and way food is grown and presented. They've announced a Green Deal approach very similar to the EU. The difference is that they haven't laid out really what that roadmap looks like. And so we're continuing to monitor this because they are looking at reductions in pesticide MRLs. So this is something I think that we have to proactively stay in touch with. Probably the main issue we've been dealing with in Japan is aflatoxin. And for those of you who have been doing business in the Japanese market, you know this is an ongoing concern. But it's important to put this into context. If you look at the chart on the lower left side, you'll see that the numbers at the bottom in red show that even with 100% inspection on import in Japan, we're seeing less than 1% rejection for aflatoxin. That's basically statistical variability. So we really don't have an issue, but Japan is very intent in the way that they monitor these contaminants. Even when we've had high insect damage, and you can see we had rejections increase, we were still at a very low percentage when you consider 100% inspection. So Almond Board is working closely with Ministry of Health. We're working closely with Foreign Agricultural Service to really try and remedy this and see if we can reduce this 100% inspection, because it's not a risk-based approach, but it's causing a lot of cost. It has particularly been a concern, I think, if you have to bring a container back when you think about the supply chain situation and what those costs are like. So what I'd like to do is now move over to China, and you've been hearing a lot about China over these last few days. And if you were at the trade session yesterday, you were hearing Jason Hafmeister talk about China Phase 1 and where we are with some of the requirements. Well, two areas I'd like to cover. First, on the retaliatory tariffs. When U.S. had introduced higher tariffs and duties related to steel and aluminum and also intellectual property, China responded with retaliatory tariffs that impacted almonds. And so you can see in this chart that for almonds, either in shell or shelled, we're at a 55% tariff rate in China. And it used to be 10% in May 2018. Now, what's important here is that while that 55% tariff has not changed, there's an exemption process in China. So importers can apply for that exemption, and they then pay 25% on those goods. So what we've started to see is actually an increase in a lot of the direct shipments into China, because importers are able to take advantage of that exemption. And you'll be hearing more about that a bit later. The other big issue in China is food facility registration. And this has had a lot of people's attention over the last few months. China announced that they were going to put in place these requirements, and there are about 18 categories of foods that have to be registered, but the difficulty is that the competent authority has to provide the facility list. In many countries, there's a self-registration system. So this has been a real concern, how this was going to be rolled out. U.S. government and a number of other countries We're asking Chinese authorities to provide more information. And so while that was going on, it has become quite clear that with a January 1st date looming, we really don't think a delay is going to take place. So what we've actually done is, as the board, we've reached out to shippers to China, and we've gathered in collaboration with them a list of who's shipping to China and what their facility establishment identifier is. And this FDA establishment identifier is a publicly available number, and that's acceptable for listing your firm in China. So we've gone ahead and we've provided that list to Chinese to see if this would demonstrate that the industry is taking this seriously, we're trying to comply with requirements, and we want to avoid any disruption on January 1st. Fortunately, FDA just announced that they are proactively allowing people to register in their ELM system. This is an export listing module that FDA has had in place for a number of commodities. And as you go through their guidance, I think it's on page 39 of that guidance, it shows that China Decree 248 is one of the requirements that can be listed using this system. So we've sent information out to industry about these requirements. Basically, FDA is asking that companies register by December 17th. Keith Schneller from the ABC staff has been working individually with companies to help them ensure that they could get registered. And we actually feel we're in a good position, but this just goes to show that you really have to be constantly monitoring what's happening and see if you can get in front of these concerns. We're hoping that, given what we've heard, we won't see disruptions on January 1st, but it's something we're going to have to continue to really watch as we go forward. So those are some of the things that are giving me wrinkles, and hopefully with a little bit more almond oil, or maybe using some of the meal or something else, I can get rid of some of the ones that I've got. But I think we're in actually a good position to try and get some of these issues controlled and stay as proactive as possible. So with that, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Julie. And I have a lot of beauty trends to tell you about. They're just going to flush those wrinkles away. So we want to cover some of the hottest beauty trends happening right now in the Asian markets. You know, it's so important for us to understand these trends because when we look at China, South Korea, and Japan, they are the leaders in beauty trends around the globe. What starts in Asia trickles to the rest of the world. So many of the things that have been adopted in the United States are thanks to these Asian markets. Some of those examples are things like CC creams, sheet masks, double cleansing. There's even the famous South Korean 10-step skincare regimen, morning and night. So I don't know if any of you guys are following that, but it's very in-depth. So it's important for us to understand these trends. And there have been some recent shifts in what's happening with beauty in Asia. Now, one of those biggest trends is because of the impact of COVID and how people have really switched their lifestyle based on COVID. The first thing we're seeing is that consumers are now, when they're looking for beauty advice and expertise, they're really going to the experts. Where in the past, there were a lot of other influencers, but now since COVID and some of the skepticism that has come around that, they're really turning to these experts. So we see a 20% increase in looking to dermatologists or professionals to get their skincare advice. One of the main reasons for that is because there have been a lot of issues caused by mask wearing. So 64% of respondent Chinese women say that they have had skin issues because of wearing their mask. So it's making people a lot more aware of skincare overall, saying that it's causing acne and other concerns. So another impact that's created is now, instead of a focus on makeup, there's a bigger focus on skincare. So how can you make sure that you're taking care of your skin, even knowing you're gonna have to be wearing a mask all the time? That's really taking the priority over wearing makeup. Another impact we've seen from COVID is this shift to at-home beauty and self-care. And so here I'm not talking about the sheet masks that have become so popular here. This is at a much bigger level. So we see that with the Asians, there's more time to take care of their skin at home, and then there's just not the ability to go out and do all the things that they were doing before from a self-care and beauty perspective. So now they're doing those things at home. This is incorporating though technology like AR and AI to actually replicate that experience you would be getting at a salon and getting from a treatment from another person and doing it to yourself at home. So much more in-depth treatments that they're now just doing for themselves at home. Another trend that we're seeing is, and this is specifically in Japan, is this emerging interest in skin microbiome. So I think a lot of us are typically, we're used to hearing microbiome talked about in relation to gut health, prebiotics, probiotics. Well, now there's really this emerging understanding in Japan around your skin and its microbiome and how you can treat it more effectively by what you're putting on your skin and also what you're eating. And going into that notion, there's been a push to clean beauty. There's a push for transparency, for really understanding what products and what ingredients are used in your beauty products. So there's been a huge push to clean beauty, and one of the drivers for that is around the belief that clean beauty ingredients are safer for your skin. So it's not necessarily around efficacy, but it's around the safety and treating your skin safely by knowing what products you're putting on your skin. This next slide shows that exactly, that it is the reason the push for natural and clean ingredients is for that safety of skin and because it's environmentally friendly. So again, this is trumping efficacy. They care about those things more than efficacy. So when they're looking for clean ingredients, they're looking for these really natural plant-based ingredients in all of their beauty products. So innovation companies are looking for all of these ways to replicate these more functional ingredients and replace them with what's the natural version of that. This is taken to even the next level around vegan beauty. So it feels like we're talking about food here, but we're not. We're talking about beauty products and this push for vegan beauty. You can see on the slide we have all of these different indicators of claims that they're making, that they're putting on beauty products. Good for you, good for a planet, good for recycling, and good for vegan. So these are claims that are being put on beauty products that consumers are really looking after. And then the other area this really leads into is this idea of ingestible beauty. So this is really ahead in Asia, much more than where it is in the US, but the belief that what you are actually eating and eating things specifically for what it's going to do to the outside of your skin and your appearance. And so when you go to a Sephora-like store in some of these markets in South Korea or Japan or China, they have a whole section dedicated to foods that you eat for your beauty. There's nothing like that here in the US, and there's whole sections dedicated specifically to this. It's a really emerging area and something that has really been adopted and important for us to understand as we think about almonds in the market. So this graph just shows over the last 10 years how much this market for ingestible beauty has really grown in China. It's expected to grow 20% over the next year, and it's at this really, really strong trajectory. Here's some examples of ingestible beauty products recently launched in China. We have things like hyaluronic acid gummies, also beverages and drinks, and even collagen jelly. These are all over the market and things that people consume on a regular basis for their skin. When you look at this similar market in South Korea, the current market is at 4.5 billion, which is impressive in itself, but it's expected to grow to 30 billion by 2030. So huge growth potential. And then when you look at the similar market in Japan, we see that they're innovating with all of these different functional foods. And what's so interesting there is you don't even have to go to a beauty store to get these functional foods. You can get them at your local convenience store or supermarket or pharmacy. So they're available everywhere. So these are becoming really widespread. So this idea of ingestible beauty is really catching on in Asia. And so as we think about almonds and eating almonds for beauty, it's important for us to build from that knowledge and awareness and see how we can position ourselves against some of these other functional foods. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rob, who can tell you a little bit about how almonds and beauty are perceived in the market.
Thank you. So Laura just took you through some of the trends we're seeing in these markets as it relates to beauty. I'm going to take you through what we're hearing from our consumers in these markets. And so the first and overarching thing is we see a very strong link between skincare and beauty in all three markets. And that goes without any change, and we're seeing it increase. And these results are going to be coming to us from the research that we do every year. And this is actually, I would say, hot off the presses, but we haven't even taken it off the presses yet. It was just completed in the last few weeks, but we will see what consumers think and how they feel and respond to these aspects of beauty. And so when we first ask consumers about the competitive set of nuts, not just almonds, but ask them which ones fit best with key attributes, when we talk about being good for your skin and being aligned with beauty or for beauty, almonds are the nut that stand above all other nuts in terms of that link. They're the ones that consumers pick the most for fitting best with those two key aspects. Further, we see that while owning these, there's still room for improvement. In Japan and South Korea, while we own those attributes, we also see a high percentage, 20 to 30% of those consumers that we talk to are saying, don't know in terms of alignment, which actually gives us a lot of room to improve our standing and strengthen our ownership in these two metrics. For China, we still have that strongest alignment. We see a much smaller percentage of our consumers saying don't know, and that means we still have the opportunity to source more of that ownership from the other nuts to stand more for those attributes, again, being for beauty and good for skincare. But we need to do it by taking kind of from those other nuts and standing for it more so than where consumers see it currently. Looking specifically at Japan, in terms of asking consumers, how motivated would it make you to eat more almonds if you learned about key aspects related to beauty? We see that it's highly motivational. We have 5 aspects here, and we see that 30% or more of consumers, they would be much more likely to eat more almonds because of learning that almonds are good for my skin, that they can reduce wrinkles, that they are good for my hair, help me be beautiful from the inside out, or learning about the vitamin E content that almonds provide. So highly motivational for the Japanese consumer. And when we talk about how they feel almonds are delivering on those 2 aspects I mentioned earlier, being good for your skin and for beauty, we see that over half of all Japanese consumers are saying that almonds, that they would rate them as being excellent or good in terms of being for beauty. That's 55%. And 52% would rate us as good or excellent in being good for skin. So very strong and positive reaction from our Japanese consumers in terms of where we are currently at in relation to these key aspects. Moving over to China, we see an even stronger reaction. And here, that motivation is in the 40%. It moves up from what we just saw in Japan. So those 5 key aspects related to skin and beauty and skincare, really rating high in terms of the impact, that it would have on their likelihood to eat more almonds. And we see that being high in vitamin E and helping me be beautiful from the inside out shifts up a little bit. So we're seeing a little bit of that nuance mentioned across the markets in terms of which different aspects would impact almond consumption the most. And here, even stronger scores in terms of how they rate almonds on delivering for those. 71% of Chinese consumers rating us as excellent or good in delivering for beauty, and 72% in terms of how we are perceived as delivering and being great for skin. And that's going to be the highest scores we see across these markets in terms of our delivery and how we're scored on delivering against these 2 metrics. Then finally, in terms of South Korea, this is where we see the strongest motivation based on these benefits. This is where, again, versus China and Japan, even stronger in terms of the impact learning about these key benefits would impact the consumption of almonds that can reduce wrinkles. 44% saying that would make me much more likely to eat more almonds. are good for my skin, good for hair, the vitamin E content, and again, helping me be beautiful from the inside out. And that's the highest motivational levels we see among these three markets. And similar to those other markets, we see very strong scores for almonds, 60% rating us as excellent or good on alignment or delivering with that for beauty aspect, and 59% on how we align towards being good for skin. And more recently in China, we just conducted a consumer segmentation, and we have a new identified consumer target, strategic target here, and it's made up of two different individual segments. And that's the beauty focused snacker and the balanced, healthy, and into looks segment. And both of these have a very, very strong interest and alignment towards their personal beauty and or their skincare. That beauty focused snacker really is most concerned with their appearance and looks. And this is about, for them, it's about the physical aspects and not as much the skin or their appearance related to skin and aspects thereof. Whereas for that second segment, that balanced and healthy and into looks segment, she takes time to spend more on her skincare routine in the morning, and really looking for that healthy and young appearance. But these two segments making up our new strategic segment in China that we are really diving into and starting to execute against, and really excited to see what we can do there. And with that, I will turn it over to Harbinder.
Thank you, Rob. So unfortunately, as you know, Connie couldn't make it today. My name is Harbinder Mann, and I'm the Associate Director of Trade Marketing and Stewardship at the Almond Board of California. I hope I can do some justice to the program today. So taking all the research that we've got, how do we take that and actually develop it into programs? Okay. We'll start with China, and then Laura will do South Korea and Japan. So China is the third largest shipment region for California almonds behind the US and India. And last year alone, we saw a 65% increase in shipments, according to the position report. Almonds are really taking ownership of that beauty nut space in China. It's really a space that no other nut owns, and we've been messaging in this area for several years now. And in China, we tend to see that the shape of a food has some anatomical benefits. So things like walnuts tend to be associated with brain power, cashews with kidneys and digestion, and we're really hoping to own that beauty space. Looking at some of our research, building on what Rob just said, so almonds continue to be a really popular snack and ingredient in China. So from our consumer annual tracking study, Global Perceptions Report, in 2020, we see that consumers perceive almonds as the #1 nut for snack association, chocolate association, and bakery association. Okay, so this fiscal year, we made 3 changes to the program, as Rob talked about the target audience. Now, beauty has been seen as a key message for our China consumer programs over the last few years, but really following COVID, eating healthy and beautiful was added to the communications. And then we also expanded the target audience to include an even younger demographic, because this audience is also beauty conscious and willing to spend money on their skin health. So some of the key beliefs of this audience are that personal beauty provides the confidence and self-assurance necessary to be successful. They believe skin appearance and healthy skin are critical in defining beauty, and they believe in the power of food and their ability to support healthy skin, weight management, and beautiful hair. And then lastly, we also added 3 additional cities to the program. So we kept Shanghai because that's really as a hub tends to be one that sets trends. But then we have cities that are tier 2 cities in the north, west, and the east. And they was really selected based on their nut consumption and the consumer target that was really open to beauty messaging. Now, pulling it all together, we have a very integrated approach to communications in China. This is our tactical plan on a page, and I'll go into each one of these areas in a little bit more detail. But it includes PR, social media, advertising, trade outreach support. The tactics really surround the consumer where they shop, in their social media channels and activations, and really, more importantly, includes incredible influencers. Okay, we're going to dive into the consumer programs first. So first, the Eat Healthy, Eat Beautiful campaign is an evolution of last year's Skin Expert program. In addition to working with skin experts this year and nutritionists, this year we added a cosmetic formulator to the panel, really talking about the effective ingredients such as vitamin E. And the e-commerce program continues to drive success for educating consumers at the very point of purchase. So let's dive into that Skin Experts program first. So the Skin Experts program was a build on last year's program, and just to reiterate, we added a cosmetic formulator to the panel. Consumers are really, really conscious about where they get their advice, as you heard from Laura. They want more from the experts. The program included a live event attended by key opinion leaders or influencers and consumer media. They did live diagnostics with consumers with lots of opportunities to highlight the beauty benefits of eating a handful of almonds. This content then gets amplified by a host of influencers and creates content really for multiple channels. And as you can see here, the program so far has created 54 million impressions. So Beauty 123 plays on the numbers that adding to your beauty routine, almonds are easy as 23 almonds a day. These next set of tactics continue to use our experts with live streaming events and also a really fun and educational app. So the live stream talked about common skin myths, things like should you be wearing sunblock on a cloudy day, and then incorporating almonds as part of your beauty regimen. The Skin Age Test app allows consumers to put in their age, take a picture of their skin, upload it to the app, and the app then gives you your skin age. It provides tips on how to help your skin get better, such as eating a handful of almonds a day. And you can see the metrics on each of these slides. So now moving to the e-commerce program. So one tactic that's really been successful these last several years has been our e-commerce sponsorship. Now the way that this works is that we sponsor a page on Tmall, and at the very top of the page, you can see our educational material, and you can see the app. And then when you scroll down, you can see all the brands that are actually selling almonds. So it really provides that consumer journey from education to purchase all in one step. And in terms of how do we drive traffic to that sponsored page, well, we have a sponsored page on the homepage of Tmall. We conduct advertising and promotions and other consumer digital channels. So moving to the trade programs, an area that's more familiar to me, there are three key pillars to the program. So you see here trade webinars, trade show, and nut association events. Now, almonds are still an important ingredient nut. As we noted at the top of my presentation, that consumers perceive almonds as the #1 nut in bakery and chocolate products. And so to keep almonds front and center of the ingredient world, we execute a combination of webinars, trade media, and trade shows, and participate in local nut association activities. Now, the trade audiences also want to know more about our consumer programs, so these touch points are also an opportunity to share our work. So due to COVID and the pandemic, last year, in-person events were very few. Many of them were canceled, and so webinars suddenly became a really important part of our toolbox. We held 2 highly successful webinars, one with media partner FBIF and one with China Daily. And SIAL China is really one of the most important trade shows that we have in the Asia region because it's an important regional show. We have attendees there from from India, the Middle East, and from the whole region itself. It's a really efficient trade show because, as you can see at the bottom here, there's all of the media outreach, all the trade media tends to be here in one place. And then Nut Association, and here are just some examples of some of our sponsorship. Most of these associations, what we do, we tend to sponsor their annual events. We'll have a speaking slot on their program, and it's really an opportunity to maintain our relationships with these important organizations. Okay, and that's my 10 minutes up. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or have Connie field them at some point. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go through the program update for South Korea. So the South Korean market, actually had an amazing year for shipments last year. It was their all-time high on record. So we'll look in detail at that shipment growth. When you look in the Asian region, it's the only country that has the highest per cap consumption of almonds at 1.5, and that leads all of the markets within Asia. So it's really strong from a per capita consumption. When you look at origin, 99% of the almonds in South Korea come from California. So almost virtually all the almonds there are from California. And then when you look at top of mind awareness, almonds lead at 44%. So we have a really strong standing in South Korea with people thinking about almonds and some strong shipment numbers. So looking at those shipments, you can see that over time, it's been, relatively stable. And then we had a big bump in the last year, up 37%. Now at 76 million pounds in the last year. So this is the record all-time high for South Korea. When you look at our strategy there, we are focused all about promoting almonds as a beauty snack. So that comes in 3 key areas: for beauty, good for skin, and then also on top of that, best for managing weight. When you look at those 3 aspects of almonds, you can see we had some really strong growth in consumer perceptions over the last year, growing by 18%, 10%, so making some really strong headway in those key attributes that we are focusing on. The campaign that we're running in South Korea is called Almonds, Our Beauty Secret. And that's all about positioning almonds as this perfect beauty snack and really trying to get people to integrate it into their daily habits. So focusing on to the proper portion of almonds that's going to get you those beauty benefits that you're really looking for. So we're talking about 23 almonds per day will give you that vitamin E and then also 6 grams of protein. So how we bring that message to life, we have a lot of consumer activities, outdoor signage, media activity, and then also online activity to bring this to life. On top of that, we really lean into influencers and spokespeople. As we talked about, that credibility and hearing it from those experts is really critical to the consumers. So we have leveraged YouTube creators, Instagram influencers, and even professional influencers to help tell the message of almonds and vitamin E and beauty. And then lastly, we've leaned in really heavily to social media, focusing on Instagram and Facebook to help bring our message to life. So what I want to show you next is a clip of the newest campaign in South Korea that is all about the Almonds Our Beauty Secret campaign. And it shows 3 different women, 3 different walks of life, but for how all of them, almonds are their beauty secret. Let's see now if it works. Oh. Can you guys get that to play? Okay. Maybe it's not playing. Okay, we'll see if we can figure it out. But that shows 3 different women kind of experiencing different things, all with almonds as their beauty secret. So let's roll over to Japan. So Japan is similar to South Korea in a lot of the ways, from strategically what we're focusing on, but then also some of the performance we're seeing. So for Japan, much like South Korea, we saw record shipments in the last year. So we'll look at that in a little more detail. Also similarly, 97 to 99% of the almonds in Japan come from California. So very strong representation of California almonds. And then last we see the almonds are the most well-known nut and are the most consumed nut in Japan. So another strong showing in the Japanese market for almonds. So when we want to look at shipment data, so a really steady increase over the last 5 years. And this most recent year, we reached 92 million pounds. That's the all-time high, and that was an 8% increase over the previous year. So it's nice to see just the continued increase over year. When we look at what we're focusing on in Japan, it's very similar to South Korea. So we're positioning almonds as this beauty snack and focusing on the idea of good for skin and then also best for managing weight. Our campaign, though, is a little bit different in Japan, where it's a beautiful life with almonds. And in this, we're 100% trying to educate consumers on the beauty and health benefits of almonds, but also showing them new and different ways to experience almonds and integrate them into their day. You know, the traditional consumption of almonds in Japan is either around chocolate-coated and chocolate-covered almonds or around eating salted almonds with beer, typically male-oriented. So this is a different way for people to think about almonds, about consuming them as a beauty snack. So that's what we're focusing on. That comes to life in, we have several consumer event programs. We did a lot of virtual events in the last year. We had a lot of PR and then just overall media outreach. Much like Korea, we also leaned heavily into spokespeople. We had 2 key spokespeople in Japan, one model and one dermatologist, to help just make sure we're influencing consumers and bringing that expertise to the forefront. And then lastly, also leaning heavily into social media with campaigns on Facebook and Instagram. So now we should have a video showing an overview of all 3 markets and our programs in those markets. Oh, and before I go there, trade, Harbinger. How could I forget trade programs? The most important. So when we do think about Japan, you know, Japan is really looked at as an innovation center of excellence in Asia. So when it comes to innovation and just overall best practices, they're an influencer there. So we want to make sure that we have a strong presence on innovation and providing all that information to the Japanese manufacturers. So Harbinger and Muriel actually did different events with Japanese trade media and importers, teaching them about the trends globally of almonds and also specific to Japan. So now with that, I hope I have a video for you all about the programs. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, on behalf of Select Harvest and the almond industry, I want to thank our team, our staff, and SRG to be doing and carrying this flag for us in all these markets. So thank you. Any questions for the panel here, please? I've got one observation to follow. This was, Julie's, your comment, and this, I'm going to the commercial side of the business. You made a comment on direct shipments, and with the tariffs, we see more and more product going directly to China. So as a sales and marketing, what does that mean? What it shows that this is becoming an even playing field, and that sets the trend for markets to expand dramatically. When there is unfair competition or product flowing from different markets, it takes out the main players because they will not do the smuggling, the gray market ways of doing business. So I see huge gains in the future years, and I think this happened because of the tariffs. So this was a blessing in disguise, and it's going to change the dynamics of that market. The other question I have for the group is, Julie, you mentioned Japan has 1% rejections. In comparison, would you share what is the rejection rate in Europe, so we have a comparison?
Sure. Well, in Europe, we actually have a pre-export program. So they're confident in the system for aflatoxin control in California. They're testing less than 1% on arrival. Japan is testing 100%. And normally in Europe, when we were under more extensive controls, it was usually at a level of about 10%, 15%. So the relationship between those numbers is quite dramatic. And what we've seen is with the high quality product that goes into Japan, you can't have zero. And so getting less than 1% is really about as good as you're ever going to see in any market. And from a European perspective, they would be thankful if you had, just a few rejections like that. So it really is quite different. And as I say, we don't feel it's a food safety issue. at all. It's just a difference in the way requirements are being applied.
My last question for the panel, I asked it at the India presentation also. Do you guys see a black swan or a game changer in these markets, good, bad, or neutral, which can make a huge impact to affect the almond industry? I gotta throw a curveball. Let's go. Let's go, team.
I had to field it
I'll,
the first time
I'll,
last time.
I'll,
so you
I'll
guys-
chime in. I'll say that I think it goes to what you actually already mentioned, which was the change in the leveling of the playing field for China. Because when we've looked at historical shipments, China's been, there's some movement there because it's a complicated market. I think if we see further flattening or leveling of that playing field, making it more even, we get to see a lot more growth from some of our biggest markets, China being obviously one of them.
Yeah, and I would layer on to that, and this is, shout out to Emily for pushing this forward, but shifting the focus to tier 2 cities in China and kind of blazing that ground, because as we've heard, we can't find case studies of other companies that have been doing this because it is so groundbreaking. But I think we believe that it's a way to approach China where we can get the most from the market in the cities, the big 3, where we already feel like we've made some strong headway, but expand outside of that and make our money work so much harder. So I think that could be a game changer, and it could literally blaze new territory for companies and brands and how they approach China.
Maybe one thing as well. One of the comments you made earlier, Dinesh, is this whole idea of uncertainty. That can really be the thing that causes so many issues in any of these markets. And I have to say, I think we all know there are a lot of things that can go wrong in a market, but having a strong program, building the support that's been built with consumers, that confidence and desire for the product really is what's going to help you weather a lot of the uncertainty. I mean, you've built a really strong consumer base that's going to pull you through a lot of the uncertainty. And so I think, keeping that strong presence in these markets and that ongoing growth in demand is really going to help us weather some of those black swans that might show up.
Thank you. Delaware, please.
I have a question about the USA market, like we talked about Korea, Japan, China, the ABC, which promotions they do. What is driven the USA market by? Do you do some more activities, and how you see the USA consumption to increase? Is there still room, or first question is how is this consumption is going? Yes, is it because of ABC or because already it's established as a attitude, yes, for the consumers? And second, is there still the room for the US to increase?
So that was specific to US.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the first thing, I think we're seeing in US that, yes, health perceptions are really strong. And in the US, we're really, our program has been focused on health for the last 15 years. And that was what really put almonds in the place where they are today. Now we're trying to elevate that and evolve that in a couple ways. So number one is having a bigger shift to millennials. So lowering the people we're focusing on, because it feels that when we look at sales data, millennials aren't consuming as many almonds as some of the older age groups are. So we need to make sure that we're appealing to millennials. And we're doing that by taking our approach to health and elevating that to overall wellness. So expanding beyond just the nutritious elements of almonds, but how that can play a bigger role in this more holistic, modern view of wellness. So, and I think we believe that there is still massive potential in the US to grow consumers. I mean, there is so much demand, so much love for almonds here, and especially with millennials and this kind of shift in focus, I think we believe that there's still a lot of room for growth. Does that answer both your questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So also the complete new uses of products. It started with milk, but you go into gluten-free, you go into lactose intolerant. It is all adding fuel to that. It's the bottom end which is moving it's a paradigm shift. You see the shipments maybe going to the US market are plateauing, but I use a line from Mark Jensen. He always say, best is still to come. So I always like that.
Thank you.
I have one question, which I talked to a couple of my colleagues who had more exposure to Japan and China, lesser to Korea. Has the shift in trendsetters between the three markets changed? Because they are siblings. Have they changed places over the last 20 years? And is our focus changing with that?
So yeah, it has shifted, I think, over the last 20 years. I think right now, South Korea really leads the three markets when it comes to setting trends. So yeah, so South Korea typically, especially from a beauty perspective, starts the trend and then it shifts over, to China and Japan as well. However, Japan is approached as it from a center of excellence perspective. So where they might not be quite as innovative and revolutionary as what's happening in South Korea, the Japanese are perfecting it. And then, but I would say it's all being led by South Korea, and especially with, just the luxury market, that a lot of Asians take their holidays and go over to Seoul and get work done, get different procedures done, buy a lot of products. And so I would really say that South Korea's, and that's an important reason of why we continue to have strong programs in South Korea, because of the influence it has on the other Asian regions, but Asian markets, but also the world overall.
When I started the introduction with an ask to go from 0.11 per capita consumption to 0.22, but looking at South Korea numbers, that's something very achievable with the cultural. So awesome. Any other questions? Oh, please. Please. I love that question.
Yeah,
I know.
when you say successful, are we talking sheer size? Because so the efficiency or the impact, not. Okay.
Emily, I would say China.
And I think with the new strategic target, I think is going to see with China is focusing on changing that target to that female consumer who's more focused directly on the health and beauty aspects. I think that you're going to even see it further strengthen.
And some of those, right, and then some of those partnerships with Tmall and things we've been able to do in China, like, that make a huge impact very efficiently. There's just some really great things we've been able to leverage at scale in China that I think have made a big impact.
But I think Dinesh actually raised a good point on his introduction about the siblings, and it's been Laura just addressed that too, which is we can look at which one is maybe most successful or most impactful, but they're not in a vacuum because of kind of how things come through, at least currently, through South Korea. You got the perfection in Japan, and then you have the scale with China that they don't exist individually.
So there was a comment in the India presentation or the research that something was done specifically for women, and then you threw in the men. So in all three markets, how are the men reacting to these campaigns, or is there an overflow? That's 50% of the population.
I mean, currently while Rob's going into his brain for the answer, currently, we focus really all three countries are focused mainly on female consumers, our target audience, as we feel like that's where the main opportunity is, especially with our beauty message. However, in China, we just did a segmentation study, and identified that new consumer. We're actually underway right now with one in Japan, and we're starting as big as possible, looking at the entire population, men, women, young, old, to see where we think the opportunity is, because just like you're saying, Dinesh, we don't want to just be ignoring half the population. And when you look at Japan, there's a greatly, aging population there. We also want to make sure that we're considering that. So we are taking a step back to make sure that, what we're doing and saying, and can we resonate with a larger group of people.
And looking at it, I don't want to be unfair in the statement, but in some, so let me back up. Globally, when you look at our strategic markets, some of our markets, when we talk about research, we're talking about generally a 50-50 mix, male and female. In some of those key markets, though, when we have a strategic target or just market dynamics, we will put more of a focus, frankly, on the female consumer, because there's more of a reason, as we're seeing in these markets with that beauty and health, it tends to be led more from the female perspective. And also, if we get into a non-user and bring in almonds for those benefits, the men are going to eat almonds because they're going to be present, they're going to be bought. And so it goes back to, in the US, I don't think we have as strong of a directive or an influence and connection to that health and beauty yet. I'd love to see us get there. But it goes back a little bit to a little bit of, if you will, the gatekeeper mentality of, it's still who is buying, who is making more of those decisions. That's who we want to focus on.
Dr. Lee, I was in that beauty presentation. She said one thing which really I could relate to. Guys, you got to take care of yourself. And it is something which resonated with me, and said, and I don't know where that meets for the almond board, for the almond industry, but as a use of almonds, I think it's a very critical part for both sides. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate all the work, and these guys made me look good. Oppa! Thank you.